Hey Jackal! In today's video, I'll show you how to make a CC glass typo effect that you can find in After Effects, but we'll use DaVinci Resolve instead. And we'll do it quite easily. In the example, I will use a map, but you can use anything else that you want, and I will also show you a few ways how you can spice the effect even more. Now let's get digital. Now to make this effect easily, and if you use a map, you will simply have to find a city map or a map that you want. And in this case, if you have a map that is folding and maybe old, you'll want some texture folded paper. So just find a texture that you like, and that's it. Now what can you make? Well, you can make this effect quite easily. Then we'll have an alternative, which is this one, maybe a little bit more cartoonishy. And you can also combine the two effects to get something like this. But let me just show you how to do the basic effect. So we'll go to the media pool, right click, make a new fusion composition. We can also change the duration to 10 seconds, give it a name, put this onto a timeline, select it and go into the fusion page. Now in the fusion page, you'll also want to open the media pool, find the map and find the texture of the paper. You can also select the node and press F2 to rename it, just so you know what it is. Now when it comes to the map, it helps if it's a big resolution, otherwise it will look a little bit pixelated once you zoom in if you do any kind of animations, as you can see. Or alternatively, you can lower the resolution of the timeline. So we have the map, we have the texture. What we can do easily now is simply press Shift Space, type in displace, use the displace. The map will go in the background and this will go in the front. Display it. We do see something happening, but what you want to do is simply adjust the light power. And if you want, you can also adjust the light angle. So that's how you can add the effect easily. If you want to make some changes, you can adjust the refraction strength. If you change the refraction strength to 0, this is the same as if you change the type from radial to XY. As you can see, no change. But if you want to have some refraction strength, you can also add it, but you won't be able to add too much of it. Now, if you want to adjust the texture size, you can add the transform after the texture. Increase the size, as you can see, but the transform has to be bigger than the screen, otherwise you'll have a border around and you will also see the map behind it. So this will only work if the size is more than 1. And now to spice this up a bit more, what we can do is add sharpen edges after the texture. So I'll use sharpen edges. Alternatively, you can also use edge detect. This could help, but for now I'll just use this one. You'll want to display the edges. Now this one makes the edges look cartoony. And as you've seen, if you add this after the transform kind of resets, because you can see the whole screen. So I'll simply remove it, and we can always increase the size at the end. So maybe we can have an effect instead of this, look like this. And now what we can also do to make this look a little bit nicer even, is add emboss. So I'll use an emboss and I will display it on the left side so we can see how it looks like. So the emboss affects the texture, and instead of relief, which we could increase the size, as you can see, it doesn't look too bad in this case, but the style that I have used was Sobel. And I think the Sobel effect blends the original texture and the sharpened edges quite nicely. But you may need to change some settings if you want to have this effect. So let's say that this is done. You can use the same thing on the map. So if I use sharpened edges on the map, this can look even better. So let me connect it. But in this case, you don't want to display the edges. So I'm not seeing any difference at the moment. Let me zoom in a little bit. So this makes some difference. This also makes a big difference. This one is like so, and let's say this one is like so. So as you can see, applying these sharpened edges can also make a huge difference if you want this kind of a look. Now this is the effect done. You'll now want to animate it. If you want to make it look nice, you can do so with the transfer node. If you just want to position the center X and Y positions. So we still need to scale it up if we want to get rid of the top and this navigation. And now to animate this, we can put it in a 3D space. So I'll use a plane, image plane. We need a camera. We need a 3D merge. And we need to render this out. I'll display the merge on the left side and the media out on the right and enable the two views. I will now select the image plane and flip this on the x-axis by 90 degrees. This has to be -90, and I'll show you why in a bit if you just have everything set to default. I'll now lift the camera up, and in the transform I'll position it down. As you can see, the rotation of the camera is -90 and the plane is upside down. So the image plane has to be also -90. Now in the camera, we can now make the animations, move the camera around as we want. But if you want to follow a point of interest on the map, you can use the Use Target option. Now this moves the camera away. As you can see, it's pointing somewhere away. So we have to put the X rotation back to 0. And now when I move the camera, as you can see, it's following this point. We can now adjust the target position. But as you can see, once you go over a threshold, the camera changes. So the image below also changes. So you have to be careful how you do the animations. So ideally you will just adjust the camera to have a starting location at a point that won't affect you. So at the beginning I will keyframe the target pivot, the rotation, and maybe also the location of the camera. So now we can go from this point at maybe the halfway point. We can position the camera to go in. Actually, first let's adjust the target position, and then we can move the camera so that the whole screen is filled in. And maybe at this point it can stay for a few moments. I'll keyframe all of the values. And then we could move the pivot again and change maybe the camera a little bit as well. If the playback is not smooth, what you can do is right click here, disable the high quality and motion blur, and also you can go to the playback and adjust the timeline proxy resolution to half or quarter. This will make it so the playback is smooth, but it won't look as good. Looks okay. Now to make the camera less staticky, with the camera selected, we'll fix the animation by going to the spline. Click on the three dots, show only select a tool. So if only the camera node is selected, you will only see the camera options. I will select all of them, and this will show you the keyframes that we made. And we can click on either this button, zoom to fit, to see all of the keyframes. And if you want to select all of them, you can click and drag to select all of them, or click on this button. And then you can simply press S to smooth out all of the animations on each keyframe. But depending on how you've done the animation, this may not always work the best, so you'll have to tweak the animation a little bit. In my case, the animation ended up okay because the camera was close enough to the image. Otherwise, if I had some black edges, I would have to make some adjustments. Now let's go to the playback, put the proxy resolution back to full, and what we can also do, we can go to the render 3D node, go to the settings and apply some motion blur. You can use quality of 2. If you want, you can also max this out. I'll just leave it at 2. And then we can enable back the motion blur and the high quality. Now will you see any difference? You should, once the animation starts playing. And if you adjust the motion blur quality, you should see some difference. So we do see a difference, and because I've now paused it at this keyframe, I also see that I have some space that I would need to fix. Now how you can easily fix tiny issues like this if you don't have a lot of space missing. If you do, in that case you would have to adjust the camera animation. Otherwise, you can go into the image plane, go to the scale, unlock the XY, or you can also increase the whole scale. Otherwise, in this case, I would be adjusting the Y scale by a little bit. Now this is the effect that I just made, and let's take a look what the difference is between the other ones that I've made previously. In this one, I have also applied the sharpened edges to the map itself, not just the textured paper, but I have increased the Y size. This one has emboss and sharpened edges. This one has sharpened edges. And this one is just the displays. That's it for this video. If you found it helpful and would like to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. I'm Simon, and until next time, Jackal, keep it digital.